April 5th, 2022 council meeting. Please call roll call, please.
Mr. Fuller.
Here.
Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Ms. Matroni. Here. Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Van Duzen.
Here.
Mr. Weber.
Here. Thank you. Please stand if you're able and join me in saying the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes of the March 15, 2022 council meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe everyone has seen a copy and reviewed this. If there are no objections, I consider the meeting minutes approved.
Thank you. We have no special reports today. Letters, communications, citizen concerns. If there's any citizen with a comment or concern, now's your time. All right. Administrative reports. Just a couple items. First, I'd like to thank the fourth graders at Fort Meigs Elementary School for inviting and having a.
I think we have some.
Well, let me finish now. We'll go through. We'll approve the door and then we go back. Fort Meigs for entertaining the mayor. They had to come in and talk about local government, and we had talked about basketball and ice cream as well. So we had a good time, and they sent out a bunch of thank you notes. So I want a special shout out to them. You guys want to go, then we'll do the door next, I guess. Right on time.
Hello, my name is Mike Hickerson. I'm the president of the Perrysburg Firefighters Local 3331.
Mike, not mean to interrupt, but I am. How long are you going to be?
Just a few minutes. I got a three-page statement here. We are the firefighters that are full-time that represent the city of Perrysburg. I'm here to speak to you about the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds received by the city and its intended use. The COVID pandemic was hard for all members of the community, including your first responders. Fire Division responded to and cared for countless COVID patients over the last 2 years, and it was the first line treatment and defense. While we acknowledge that city parks are important to us and their patrons, we'd like to assure you that we are being good stewards of the funding that has been provided to our city. There are several funding deficiencies that currently exist within our Fire Division. Currently, we're in the process of purchasing a new fire engine. We're trying to replace a 1997 engine that has multiple mechanical problems, currently without a generator as a backup engine, and was on a 20-year replacement plan. From order to delivery, it's about a 2-year process to build a fire engine, from the time that you order to the time that you take delivery. When we began budgeting the purchase last year, we were already behind due to the failure to update the vehicle replacement plan with the current pricing. It's been the intent to duplicate that 2017 engine and is to keep our equipment uniform. That way, if you work at one engine in one station, you go to the other station, you get in the other engine, everything's in the same place, everything works the same, makes it much easier. The last engine we purchased in 2017 was a rough cost of $750,000. With emission changes and other price increases passed on to us by vehicle manufacturers, that same engine costs $868,000 roughly. Recently, another $75,000 was cut from our budget to purchase this engine. Our monthly drills that we did, joint training with other mutual aid departments such as Perrysburg Township, was never resumed after COVID. So we used to do 2 nights a week of fire drills and 1 night a week of EMS drills, a lot of it mutual aid with the Perrysburg Township. Right now we're mostly doing on-duty training. It's hard to do on-duty training, just like if you're trying to hold a council meeting and you got interrupted by calls that come in every so often. It'd be hard to keep track of what's going on, learn new material, pick up skills like we should.
Just a quick question, was that decided in arbitration?
We asked for 24 hours of uninterrupted training,
Well,
and
that was decided in the arbitration, correct?
a minimum of 24 hours, Mayor,
Right.
which isn't a whole lot when we compare it to what we were doing before we actually got into that contract. We did 24 hours just in EMS training alone before that arbitration came up. So we are lacking in fire training. We have not had live fire training in about 7 years. Recently, I talked to some people from Bryan Fire Department over in the west side of the state, and they said that they do quarterly live fire training. It's important to train to know what we're doing so that people don't get hurt. So we're able to respond, we're able to work efficiently. Just like me coming up here and speaking for the first time in front of you all. It's a bit choppy, but if I'd been up here before, several different times, I'd be flowing right through it. In addition, approximately half of our money budget to our conferences and travel training is now being used by the fire chief and deputy chief for their own training and travel in and out of state. Moreover, the current payroll budget prepared by the fire chief, submitted and approved by council, will show a deficiency roughly of $250,000 in straight time and wages. This will show up in the fourth quarter. This is not including overtime or training time that would have come out of the overtime line, which would also show as a deficiency. Staffing levels for the fire division are far below what our comparable neighboring departments would be, such as Bowling Green, 14 minimum a day. We currently staff 9 individuals on a shift with a minimum of 7. Fire administration today discussed a plan to drop our response levels to our emergencies. If you live downtown right now, you get 3 firefighters showing up right away and a 4th one coming from the other station. If you live out of the downtown district, you're gonna get 4 firefighters showing up right away. This makes a difference on things like arrests and such. Our administration is planning on leaving our captains back at the station to do daily duties instead of responding on calls. This will put their response at 2 or 3. I hear that this is for falls. We don't know what causes the fall when it comes in. Sometimes it's a fall because people get old and they lose their balance and they trip over their dog, whatever. Sometimes it can be things like a heart attack or breathing difficulty, things like that, dizziness, things that would require more people. This plan keeping captains out of one of the 7 daily minimum staff members back at the station unless absolutely needed to perform duties previously taken care of by the chief and then deputy chief. The division already has responded to over 750 fire and EMS incidents this year, which keeps us on track to meet or exceed 3,000 incidents in 2022. There have been numerous times that we've needed to call for mutual aid from Perrysburg Township, Milton Township, EMS to handle EMS calls because we did not have enough staff to respond. I could go on talking about this stuff, but what I'd like for you guys to do before you consider voting for the Parks and Recreation stuff, which we all enjoy. Perrysburg is a beautiful community. I really enjoyed raising my family here. Very much love the community. But I would like for you to take a second look at what you're doing here and see if there's can be some money that can be allocated back towards the fire department for training, engine, such as that. And
All right, thank you very much.
that's all I got.
If I would just briefly respond, and I'm going to let the chief respond if he would like. But a lot of these are administrative issues. First off, the responsibility of the administration. And second, I want to reiterate that the fire department has not had any budgets cut, has not had anything they haven't asked for that hasn't been submitted through the proper chain of command and gone through the proper review process. And this is part of, we believe that we're using the funds in a prudent and effective manner to best serve the residents. And I think we've continued to do that. And we hope that we're more than happy to council to review our processes in the proper form, to not be addressing administrative issues that are unless in the budgetary context and those kind of things. So we hope for your continued support and cooperation, because we've done what we've been doing in the past with the fire department, consistent with the recommendations of the department. And I'll let the chief answer some of them, because there are some pretty open charges I think we just want to address. And then if we're going to go to, if council wants to discuss these, they can talk to them in the service or the safety committee, the safety that's the proper place for these to be discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Rudy Ruiz. I'm the fire chief of the city of Perrysburg. I understand the firefighters' concerns. We did come into a number of funds because of COVID, and we understand that there is certain allocations that go along with that. And we were not a part of it. However, we were, because of the COVID situation, a lot of the money was funded for police and fire, and that was, however it was distributed, it's up to administration. The president is correct. Roughly $686,000 was purchased for the previous engine. We had initially put in it started out with $825,000. Then it went up to $850,000. Then I proposed in my budget $875,000. The problem was, and I don't blame the members of the truck committee, I blame the vendor who continuously increased the prices, wanting the purchase made right now, which was the last quarter of last year, knowing full well that we can't make any decisions or make any purchases until we come to you, council members, to make that decision whether or not you approve our budget request. We couldn't wait. It's up to $900,000 now. So we had to put a stop to it. We had to say, let's come up with a reasonable conclusion. And at the officers meeting today, we agreed that the $800,000, which was the number that was handed to us, work with that. We agreed that we can work with that. And I told them personally, I told the officers, if you make that decision now at $800,000, I'll be more than happy to bring it to safety committee today if I have to. And get their approval so that we can present it to you. It can be done. We agreed that we're going to make it happen. So that's being taken care of. As far as fire drills, that's a whole training issue, and we had a number of issues with the training. People weren't showing up, they weren't participating. It went from 2 hours to 4 hours because we thought it would be beneficial, and then we scrapped the whole thing because it wasn't effective anymore. This was way before COVID. COVID came, we did have some meetings, we call them Training Thursdays, where we trained with the township. Yes, we haven't brought that back, and it's my intention to bring that back because that was very effective. The President's correct. I too would like to have additional fire training, but live fire training, it's something that's very necessary. We need to come up with. As far as conference training for both chiefs, yeah, we need training too. We need training in leadership. We need training in data mining. We need training in recruitment and retention. We need training to recharge our batteries as well, because we're dealing with a number of issues. I call it, I'm on the balcony and I have to oversee everything. From time to time, I need to come down off the balcony onto the dance floor and talk to the people that are actually dealing with these situations. I get it. I just came back from a conference in Orlando. Very well developed and a lot of good information, and I will tell you that there is fire departments all over this country, including the world, that are going through the same thing. We have communication issues and morale issues. We're trying to get together and trying to figure out what we need to do. What I intend to do is I intend to conduct what I call listening sessions, going out to the firefighters, talking to them, listening to them, what's going on, and so far it's been working. And it's something that we just started, and it's something that I should have been doing for quite some time. I get that, I understand. But again, I've been on the balcony too long. One of the reasons why we get interrupted with training, because we're still doing things the way we used to do when we had one station. Everybody would go on the call. We're still kind of doing that, where we're sending 4 people on a call. In most cases, we don't need 4 people. And the president is right. Sometimes you do need people. We don't have any problem with that. Any problem with calling for assistance. If you need help, let us know. We'll send you more people. That's not a problem, but we don't need to send 7 people on every call when 2 will suffice. That is the reason why we're changing those things, so that we can continue the training. We can continue with our training uninterrupted, where everybody has to go on these particular calls. Do they get interrupted? Yes, they do. But it can be done and still run on the calls and still address the issues that are going on in the city. Yes, I do want the captains to stay back because there's a lot of administrative duties that they're doing now. Things that we've come to accomplish because we've grown. We built a second station. We're doing a lot of things that we haven't ever done before. So in my discussions, I say, you know, we can't keep doing the things we've always done because it's not working anymore. In order for us to grow, and ever since I've been here, ladies and gentlemen of the council, we have made some progress, quite in a very short period of time, because we're growing. And because we're growing, there is going to be some growing pains. And we're trying to adjust as best as we can. There are some individuals who desperately want to go back to the way we're doing things, and their only answer is to add more people. I disagree. I think we can make things happen and still with the staff that we have now. So if I'm wrong, we'll figure it out and we'll make another decision. I have no problem doing that. I'm not a hard-hearted man. I do make mistakes from time to time. I'm a human being. But I will say that I'm doing the best I can, and we have a good group of people. You are protected very well by a fine group of professionals, and they're doing the best they can. Unfortunately, we can't keep doing the things we've always done. We have to move forward, and we have to find different things, different ways of doing things. One thing that we are doing better now is we're data mining. We're finding out exactly what kind of calls we have, what type of resources we're going to need, including training, apparatus, staffing, and locations of maybe a third fire station. We have all that data that we're gathering together. That's what we're doing now that we've never done before. So yes, we're going to be going through some growing pains. And I like to think that I have a good relationship with the union and I have a good relationship with the officers. So we're trying to work things out. We're trying to get things back together. COVID did a lot more things than just get people sick. It put us in a position where we were never at before. And we had to pivot. We had to change. We had to do things a little differently. And that took a huge toll on a lot of people. When COVID first started, and I'm going to take up too much more of your time, when COVID first started, we were all in it. We said, we're ready to go. We're ready to serve this community. Summer came and nobody could take a vacation. Vacation from our line of work is very, very important. We need to get away from what we do because we need to spend time with our family, spend time with our kids, our spouses, get away from the job so that we can come back refreshed. If we're training every day that we're not working, we're always going to be here. That's not a good thing. So that's why I insist on having training while we're here. And if we're constantly coming back, we're not getting that getaway time. We're taking time away from our families. And personally, I don't think that's good. Now, if you disagree, then we can have that discussion too. But I think after that first summer, nobody could go anywhere because there was no travel. We couldn't even leave the state, if you recall. So that was very difficult for a lot of people. Then they said, you know, we can't get together during the holidays, during Thanksgiving or during Christmas. We couldn't put up with that. We had to be with our families. That's when everybody started getting sick. And I get it. And then we had another year of doing the same thing. It was very challenging for us because we were there. We didn't get a break from any of it. We didn't get to work from home from any of it. We had to be there every day and taking care of very sick people. Did we do a good job? I think so. Was it stressful? Oh yeah, it was very stressful. And we're starting to recover from it now. So I just want to let you know that I am doing the best I can. The firefighters are doing the best they can. And I have no issues with changing the way we do things. And if those changes don't work, we'll try something else. And if that doesn't work, we'll try something else. And if that doesn't work, maybe we will go back to the way we're doing things. But I think we're growing and we're doing a good job right now. So I appreciate your time.
Okay, we appreciate hearing from members of the team and also from the chief. Certainly, we would be welcome to have dialogue with council members and send it to the Surface Safety Committee for further consideration. And some of these issues, some explanation as to why, what was done and how it's being done regarding some things to try and update the city's operations at all levels. And we certainly wouldn't want to do anything that would in any way make performance not as effective as it was, or to do anything that would be in any way counterproductive to the team and their ability to do their job, and certainly not anything anybody wants to do. So we certainly look forward to that further dialogue, and hopefully we can make some improvements to the to what we're doing and how we do it, I'm happy to do that, so. Okay, moving on. Back to my report. We have some recommended timelines for council to consider for approving the DORA. I'm not sure if everybody's got this document, so I will read off the dates and the times so that everybody has them, and I think we need then council to agree to those dates so that we can move forward on the timeline as efficiently as possible so that those can be considered. The new DORA can be considered, and also the revisions to the DORA for Uptown Perrysburg. So March 23rd has already happened. I submitted the DORA application to everyone. April 5th, council approves the application of the for April 11th and April 18th, and public hearings set for May 3rd. Publication dates are April 11th and April 18th, and the public hearing on May 3rd. So April 11th will be the first public notice, April 18th will be the second public notice, May 3rd will be the public hearing prior to council, May 10th is 30 days from the initial publication date, and council can then approve, deny, or make any adjustments to any application. After that date, the council must approve, deny by June 9th, just 60 days after the initial application. The administration recommends approval, denial at the council meeting of May 17th, which is the first one after the public hearing, and then first chance for the real discussion. If council approves the application, would that be sent to the state with the requested documentation for review and approval? So if those dates are acceptable, I think we need a council.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Sorry.
The only thing I want to make City Council aware of is that on May 3rd, there are currently 7 public hearings scheduled beginning at 5:55. I don't foresee that you can't do this one as well, but those will not be rescheduled. So you want to consider whether or not everyone can be here. This is obviously a public hearing that will take more than 5 or 10 minutes. So at minimum, I would suggest that you start at 5 o'clock if everyone could be here at 5 o'clock for that public hearing. I just wanted everybody to be aware of that issue.
Is the public hearing for both the new application and the non-application?
Yes, we're trying to keep these on the same timeline so that when we send it to, if both are approved, they go to the state together and everything gets done at the same time. I don't get to call on you, he does.
I have something to add for May 3rd. We also have to have, and I apologize, I just found out today, a joint cemetery meeting, the first meeting in May with council.
We can change it, we've changed it before.
That can be changed.
I believe so, I think we've done that before. So, look at Tim, I think Tim recalls.
The only time I remember those during the pandemic, so.
Yeah. Does it say that we have to have it that
It
first?
says the first council meeting in May. I mean, I can look for you
We
for
can
it
have
again
an all-day
later.
council meetings if we get on to, so we'll start at 9 a.m. and go to 6.
We couldn't really start that at, I mean, those aren't very long,
Typically not.
so.
Ooh, there's several changes coming there, so, but I don't think it's gonna be too much, so we'll have to go with that.
Do we have a minimum requirement for the 7 public hearings? Are they related, or do they have to be 5?
They're already published, scheduled, and notice went out. So
Planning commission set up.
I am looking into whether or not we have to do this the way we've always done it, of like 5 minutes, or we could just schedule one public hearing with everything on it. But I don't have that answer tonight.
Okay, I was gonna say, because if they're all kind of related, like tonight was somewhat.
But they're all published at this point, so we
Some of
can't
that-
change.
I think one of the reasons they have been separated in the past is that sometimes if there's a controversial issue, it's better to have them separate, but I
Absolutely.
think these are generally pretty but those are already set, so it's kind of border on the bridge.
Gotcha.
But you can,
Well, if
The cemetery board meeting, we usually have that at
Is-
5:30, the joint meeting. If, I don't know, I don't think we're gonna be able to change too much of the public hearing at this point.
you said 5,
That's at 5:30 for the cemetery.
she said this at 5.
And then if we have the public hearing dates, what would happen if that's changed a day later or a day earlier?
Nothing. You'd be fine. You just have to all be here.
what? My personal preference would just be knock it out one day.
I
It kinda
prefer
comes
as
with the
well,
territory.
but
So
I
mean,
know,
what happens if, so say we schedule a DORA public hearing for 5 o'clock and we run into 5:55.
we just keep rolling until we're done.
I would be totally fine with scheduling that for 5.
well, the issue was we still have the joint cemetery meeting, so we're gonna have the township trustees in here. And
We could invite them to the door.
I'm sorry?
Invite them to the door.
Maybe that'll get them to request to reschedule.
Can they go 4:30? Cemetery meeting, can go at 4:30?
Seeing as how we're this far
Oh,
out,
really?
I could make that work potentially with my work schedule. I would just check and see with the township trustees.
The board meetings are usually early in the day, aren't they?
Nah, the board meeting is always at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could try to shoot for 4:30 with the cemetery board meeting if everyone's acceptable, and immediately
It would
afterwards.
be nice to do it all in one day.
I don't disagree, because
So you want to do the cemetery board at 4:30, and then public hearing at 5, which you have to move forward with that. It's fine with
The cemetery is good information, but not necessarily part of this motion that you need to pass
that. Makes your sense as well.
regarding this timeline. I just wanted to make sure we were aware that we couldn't set it at like 5:30. That wasn't going to give you enough time. So if you're scheduling it for 5, then you can just, if everybody's okay with every other part of this schedule, then we can just have the motion.
My only other question about the schedule was, as we've been discussing summer schedules, does this get back May?
No, May is not part of the summer schedule. Only July and August are part of the potential summer schedule, so this would not impact that.
That influence us.
Does that matter?
No, that may impact.
Nobody's voting on passing this or not passing this. We're just passing the, and then I'll have a legal opinion to answer that question. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
I will come up
I
with
just
it.
thought of it.
I'll give you a legal opinion.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's why I saw you both. I got all nervous.
Thanks for
We will.
watching out for me.
We will.
Yeah,
We'll
will
work
you,
on that.
in that same opinion, will you, if you can, include property owners, and not necessarily residential?
We need 4 of you.
Huh?
We need 4 of you.
Well, I know, I don't,
No, I know.
I can't believe it would be a conflict, honestly, but
All right, so
caution.
we're just talking about the public meeting now. We'll worry about
All
that.
we're doing is city council's approving this schedule so that we will have public notification on the 11th, public notification on the 18th, public hearing on May 3rd at 5 o'clock. And then after that public hearing, the first hearing for which anyone could vote on this would be May 17th. If you did 1 reading, if you did additional readings, we would go from there.
I'll make a motion to move forward with that schedule.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fuller? Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you all.
Very much. City Administrator has a report. Finance Director?
No report.
Law Director?
No report.
Thank you very much. Committee reports.
Will you skip it?
Oh, I just got
I see all this is.
Rolled right along. President of Council.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of the summer schedule, I was going to bring that up tonight. I know we received an email from Amber regarding the summer schedule here, having meetings in July 19th and August 16th. We also have, as Ms. Wilbers made us aware of as well, the Great American Race is going to be coming to through here. And that's going to be during a council meeting. They're going to be hitting here right at the time the council meeting starts, which would be June 21st. It's going to be a big event. There's going to be a lot of things. There's a lot of requests that are coming out on that. So I wanted to see if council would be willing, and I'm willing to make a motion to move our June 21st council meeting to June 28th. I know that might change some committee meetings, but that's something that we could look at that time as well.
Second that.
Any discussion?
Can I check the calendar real quick? Comes off quick.
I think, just push it back 1 week and then we'll,
Address the committee.
yeah,
Address the minute.
they took that safety committee.
That is safety, right.
So, and they could always move before the council meeting if needs be.
I'm sorry, Jonathan, could you just repeat what date you said you wanted to move it?
June 28th, so it's the following Tuesday.
Thank you.
And then what were the other summer meeting days?
So this is just a change to June 1 first, and then the other one I believe was, I'm looking at the email, was July 19th and August 16th would be the meetings for those 2 months.
Those haven't officially been approved yet. or-
We haven't had a motion for that. Motion is just for the June 21st to June 28th.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that? If not, roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes,
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
thank you, I appreciate that, and I think that this is going to be a big thing for our community. It's be good to see all of us there if we can make it. And the next one is going to be going over the summer one. If we want more time to digest it, we can. If you're comfortable, I can make that motion and to move that forward. So seeing no one objecting, I'll make that motion to move forward the summer schedule of July 19th and August 16th.
Second.
I will be out of town the 19th, which is fine with me. I'm just glad. It seemed like there was a consensus that that date works for everyone. but
Maybe we'll be
yeah.
streaming the meetings by then.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Any other comments?
At some point, you probably need to think about a motion to approve that, what you were just discussing.
Well, we are.
No, not that. Just reading, just
No.
a reminder.
Yeah. No, well, we haven't got a plan.
I appreciate it. I'll talk about that next.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
All right, and then as our law director reminded us, we had a conversation at the end of the meeting last council meeting regarding the streaming of the meetings on live streaming, I guess is the best way. We had, I know some of the members of the council want to take some time to discuss it a little further and contact the public on it. I'm willing to make a motion to request that the administration explores the idea of live streaming the council meeting, so we can, so let me rephrase the motion. I'd like to make a motion that the administration begins to work to live stream our council meetings.
It's okay.
Any discussion? I think we've already started some of those projects and ongoing. We gotta get some things ready.
Part of that work part would be to probably cost it.
Yeah.
Price it.
And I would imagine it will be coupled perhaps with legislation we can vote on down the road.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes,
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
that is the end of the president's council report that you wanted to skip, so that's
Pretty painless for once. Okay. Finance, committee reports. Finance and economic development.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no report, but I do have a couple pieces of legislation that we need to do second readings on. This first one, this will be the second reading for a resolution declaring the necessity of a 12-month street tree assessment. This is the first of 3 pieces of legislation to proceed with the assessment. So I would like to introduce Resolution 23-2022 for its second reading and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 23, 2022, a resolution declaring it necessary to provide for the removal and special treatment of shade trees and controlling the blight and disease of same, and for the planting, maintaining, trimming, removing shade trees in and along the streets within the public rights-of-ways of the city of Perrysburg.
Okay, and now I'd like to move on to the, this is the second reading for a resolution authorizing the use of ARPA funds. The resolution includes Exhibit A with a list of the items council can make changes to before the final vote. So I would like to introduce Resolution 25-2022 for its second reading and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni? Yes. Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 25-2022, a resolution declaring city council's intended use for coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery, aka ARPA funds.
This is that time to discuss if anyone wants to discuss.
I guess I was kind of curious how we're going to deal with, I know there was some concern about the McKinley Woods project, and that's addressed in these funds. I was just kind of curious to what the plan is to address those concerns with those citizens. I know this is to plan more so, but we are spending significant dollars.
I talked with resident, and I think the biggest concern that they have, and I want to make sure that I'm invited to the Recreation Committee to come talk as we continue the conversation. So even though we have this still on here, we're still having another conversation on recreation. I've given them the time. But from how I understand it, their biggest concern is an increase in traffic, and this is going to be more of a destination park. I don't think when we had originally passed to turn it into a park, it was suggested making sure that it's a passive park, even though it's zone park. It would be a way for us to put the certain facilities on for it to benefit the neighbors around it, more so than just be a destination park.
Right, and as far as the scheduling for this, I know we're going to be a third reading at next. We're going to talk about this at recreation between now and
I invited them, I'll follow up with them to make certain that he can come to that.
Because one of the concerns I'm hearing, same thing, is basically the worry about tree removal as well, animal habitats, and I'm vocalizing the concerns, and I get it.
And I believe the intent that I plan to support with it is to keep it as natural as possible. And I know we originally talked about it was going to be one of the unique parks in the area that had a woodland with a path through it. So
I just wanted to at least bring that up tonight while we're discussing this.
There has to be some amount of tree management.
I would anticipate that as well. I just know that we don't necessarily want, they are concerned about affecting the character of those woods to a certain extent. So, and I can appreciate that.
Well, I would think once they understand what the ideas are for that park, they'd be kind of happy about it. It'd be a real enhancement, I think, to their properties. And I think they'll really enjoy using it. I can understand the concern they just see park and they think they're going to have soccer fields out there or something. But I'm prepared to go ahead with it, and then hopefully we can, educate them as we go as well, and get their input and their help on how this should develop. Because I think they'll find in the end it's going to be a very nice addition to their neighborhood.
and I want to keep them involved throughout the whole process too.
I thought Brody's reps their concerns really good and really very well.
Yeah, thanks for sending that email, bro. One of the things I'm going to ask for at the Recreation Committee for that meeting would be the deed restrictions. I understand it was donated to the city, right? That land?
Some was traded.
Oh, yes. If there's any restrictions, because one of the implications was that it was given to the city with some sort of restrictions on the wood staying intact. I just want to make sure that we're looking at all that stuff.
In portion of it was donated, and I knew Mr. Hall fairly well, and his hope was that it would be preserved in a wooded environment. There was no particular definition behind that.
Right. There was not a. Right. There was some intent to what he conveyed but it was not every tree had been maintained. It was.
I just wanted to make sure we can address that at the Recreation Committee.
And if there was a deed restriction, you know very well how easy it would be to find it.
Yeah. If we're done discussing that, I believe there's some remainder funds left, correct? And I don't know whether we necessarily want to designate them towards anything, or whether this vote would do that. But I think it would be great seed money to get something started, if nothing more, in the planning phase for Hood Park. Because that is sitting there idly unappreciated, underutilized, and undeveloped. And I can only hope maybe this would be seed money, that maybe we could do something.
We can allocate the, kind of, well, as we have started some hood efforts to do Hood Park. There's been some initial discussions. There's been, the committee chair has been invited to some meetings. We've brought in some outside people and had an initial plan. I thought that some of the council members had seen the plan.
There's one Orleans Park.
Orleans Park, I'm sorry, you're talking about
I was referring to Hood.
Hood. Oh, Hood.
Yeah.
Because I know Orleans is a part of this.
So you were talking about Hood Park?
The remainder.
Yeah, okay.
If nothing more than his seed money.
That's right. We get kind of the reserve if there's funds left over.
If we may.
But also, since this list came out, our administrator let us know that the EPA is just not giving us any kind of timeline about along the river. So phase 3, she talked about that we can move forward with phase 3 possibly
For the multi-use path.
for the multi-use
Yes.
path down there by the river. Is that something we could use some of these funds for as well? To get that moving?
We've got a grant.
Or do we have a grant
Yeah,
that's,
grants for that.
do we need
Are you
it?
talking about between Riverside Park and Orleans
The
Park?
green, yes.
So we
yeah, the white.
have grant funds, and there's been some allocation for that. I mean,
All right.
however council wants to do that.
I just want to make sure we do have the funds to move forward with that.
We haven't sort of allocated with it, it's just a matter of who would get it out.
Okay.
And I'm curious what comes of the Talks and Safety Committee too, is allocation of those funds too, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's the administration handling that.
I think a lot of those issues are administrative issues, but certainly we do want to make sure that, and the fire department has received a pretty large budget and/or funds in the past. When the first round of CARES Act funds came out, a lot of that funds was allocated to the fire department for, especially for safety equipment, safety materials and other things. But certainly that's something that the council wanted to consider. But I think that most of those seem to me to be budgetary issues. But that's certainly something council can.
I would like to kind of see too, I know we do have some money left over, and while I feel that the investment in the park is very valuable, I know a lot of local businesses were impacted during that time period and lost, some income during that time period. I don't know if there's something we could do with, downtown Perrysburg game for the chamber, where we encourage like a day of like support local through businesses. I don't know if any of that can go to small or the local businesses.
There's a lot of restrictions on the funds, but we can look at that. There are, one of the issues always is the total restriction on how you can use those funds. And then, so you're not out of compliance. Not quite sure what you're considering, but we certainly want to support local businesses, and that'll be council's preference. Administration would not oppose the allocation of some of those funds for that, but you also run into the issue if you're dividing it up a long way, you're not helping anybody. So that's fine. We can get back to you on whether that's even. I know a donation would not be permitted. That's what you're kind of thinking.
I was thinking more like like an encourage, I don't know, like encourage people to like focus on our commercial areas, whether it be Levis or the uptown area. Maybe a special event or something like that.
Yeah, those are the kind of restrictions. There are a lot of restrictions on that.
Okay.
I mean,
not where we're like handing out money to businesses, but just a featured event within the city or something like that.
Yeah, one of the things that I guess from my perspective is that you want to make sure you're using it for a long-lasting impact over time for the entire community, as opposed to, it seemed to me that was kind of what we talked with the council's departments as well, was a global use that would be have value over time as opposed to a one-time incident. But
I know during that time period, a lot of people that were working.
I don't disagree with you on that.
I will say a couple people have mentioned traffic, investing in infrastructure. I honestly, I would assume we're kind of on top of that with traffic studies. I know we're constantly altering routes and doing improvements, but at least want to pass that along, because there's clearly, River Road shut down. You're seeing a lot of traffic on Apple Road even, and Echo Junction, and a lot of pass-throughs going on. it's taken a toll on some of our roads too, so.
TMCOG does traffic studies every year, and you can easily get a whole lot of information. I've been approached to pass on to you wind screens for the pickleball courts at the city park.
You mean shade?
Wind screens.
Wind. Oh, yeah, for the fencing?
Everybody has a bad.
Yeah, everybody has their own.
Everybody has.
I think that's something we could potentially talk about even at Rocket. Would they look at the grants that they provide?
Yeah, that's a.
That's
I mean, I think the goal, everybody's goal, is to use those in the best purpose for the entire community for the most bang for your buck. And we tried, I think, we asked for input from council, and the community certainly been forthcoming with suggestions, and we're trying to do our best to use the resources the best we can. We want to do, one, be good stewards, two, make sure we comply with all the rules and regulations that apply, that came with a pretty complete manual about that thick that we've had to review and make sure we're in compliance with. And so I think that council's help, we've got a pretty good use of the funds. So, but we're, the last main part, the Cliff Park would be a good suggestion to have a kind of a holdover if there's months of money available, because with costs that are also going up, resources are going to go quickly, and I think we've got to make sure we do it in the right way. So, okay.
I just want to ask, will all the committees meet before our next council meeting?
They will not.
They will not, so should we hold this third reading off until all the committees have met again?
But then it would mean that there will come a delay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to hold off, but
I think everybody's had plenty of, especially, I think the community, the reason for the public was so the public could comment, the public has commented. I think the council was also solicited for information prior, so that everybody's had their.
Okay.
I think the further conversation, we still have that kind of reserved fund, so.
All right, so we'll be voting on this at the next council meeting.
Right, and the council administration, however council chooses to use that is fine.
And the next Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting is Tuesday, April 12th at 5:30 p.m. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, trying not to skip over anybody. Safety committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Safety Committee met on March 22nd and was called to order at 6 p.m. Committee members present were Barry Van Huzen, Mark Weber, and Jan Attorney. Also present were Richard Cabot and Kate Sandrero. Citizen concerns, Jim Hagan at 10741 Avenue Road has a minor concern regarding the boundary streets in Perrysburg and people not following the speed limits. He isn't sure if there is a lack of enforcement or if people are just becoming more impatient when driving. Ms. Cabot stated the police department cannot enforce anything unless an officer witnesses it personally. Ms. Sandrero added that the only exemption would be school bus drivers who can report when someone violates. Ms. Cabot and Ms. Sandrero will speak with the police chief and report back on the matter to see if there are any other options. Ms. Cabot added that unfortunately the goal is voluntary compliance, which does not always happen. Mr. Weber noted that he has witnessed Mr. Free's patrons ignoring the new traffic pattern, that is supposed to be right in, right out only. The minutes were approved from the January 25 meeting. B0, Dora. Ms. Cabot stated that tomorrow they would be submitting to City Council the formal application request from Love's Commons. The application is very similar to the first application that was brought to City Council by Love's Commons several years ago. Ms. Cabot added that the second application coming to City Council tomorrow through the mayor is to expand the existing downtown Perrysburg Dora footprint. So far, there have been no negative feedback from the school property, Perry's Landing, or Wade Public Library. City Council must approve a schedule in which to advertise the public notifications, as well as set a public hearing date. Ms. Cabot would like to see the two applications move along in tandem. She recommended that this could be sent to any committee in April, and it would not disrupt the timeline. I thank the administration for helping the downtown Perrysburg Dora develop their plan. I indicated that I'm ready to move this right to City Council to be reviewed, and the committee agreed 3-0 to send it on to Council. One Ohio. Ms. Andredo explained that One Ohio MOU regarding settlements for opioid lawsuits in the state of Ohio. She also made mention of the fact council looked at this in 2020 and it did not pass. Ms. Andredo believes that it did not pass at that time because council members felt like they were being rushed to vote for the resolution. The third piece of legislation will also go to the Finance Committee. Mr. Van Hoosen and Ms. McCurdy stated that they are no longer have the same concerns that they did previously, and I wanted to know how much money we actually gave up by not passing this the first time. Ms. Andredo answered that we have not given up any money yet. 2 resolutions were approved 3-0 to send to City Council. The ordinance was approved 3-0 to move to Finance Committee. Under other business, Mr. Weber stated that a concerned citizen approached him and wanted to know why a full-time police officer is at the security post in the municipal building. Ms. Andredo stated that security matters are protected and not public record. Ms. Cabot explained that the security post is not a full-time assignment for anyone and is rotated in through 4-hour increments. The person there would still have to be OTA certified and has to have the ability to act as a law enforcement officer. We adjourned at 6:30, and I do have 2 resolutions, and if there are no objections, I will read them together. I would like to introduce Resolution 26, 2022, Resolution 27, 2022, and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hoosen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 26, 2022, a resolution to accept the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding. Resolution 27, 2022, a resolution authorizing participation in a region governance structure under the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding.
I move that Resolution 26, 2022, Resolution 27, 2022 be passed.
Second?
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hoosen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Our next meeting will be Tuesday, April 26th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Recreation.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report. Our next scheduled meeting is on April 12th at 6:30 p.m.
Planning and zoning.
No report, Your Honor, we'll meet tomorrow night, 5:30.
Personnel.
All right, I have a report for you tonight. Personnel Committee meeting was held March 22nd. The meeting was called to order at 5:01 p.m. I was there along with Kevin Fuller. Tim McCarthy was not present, although he did notify us that he wasn't going to be there. Also present were Bridget Cabot, Casey Andretto, and Kelly Chalfant. There were no citizens' concerns, and the prior month's minutes were approved. We then reviewed proposed updates to section 266 of the code, which is going to be my legislation tonight. Ms. Chalfant walked the committee members through each part of section 266 of the code briefly and answered questions as they went along. Mr. Fuller wanted to know about conflicts with bargaining employees, and Ms. Chalfant explained that this purely applies to non-bargaining employees. I requested a time of the year where Personnel Committee looks at raises, comparisons of neighboring jurisdictions, and the pay, positions we are looking to hire for next year, and any other financial aspects relating to the committee. Committee agreed 2-0 to send these on to City Council for approval. We also reviewed the charter review process. I stated that there's been interest in having, and I'm going to change the wording in my report here, in having the law director portion of the charter changed. Angela, if you could make that change to the report so we can reflect that in the minutes when those are approved, I'd appreciate that. So we were looking at the law director portion of the charter so that they are overseen by mayor and city council directly. The first proposed change would be to eliminate the language that the law director is under supervision of city administrator. I also mentioned about the possibility of having a provision that requires department division heads to attend city council and committee meetings. Also would like to discuss this with city council as a whole, and I'll begin that discussion tonight. Also wanted to review the status of the deputy city administrator position. Ms. Cabot stated that so far she has surveyed 28 different municipalities similar in size to Perrysburg. 19 of these have city administrators, and 4 of those 19 have deputy city administrators. Elaine Paterno is requesting position descriptions from those jurisdictions. Ms. Cabot would like to figure out how this position would function, either as their shadow or with their own specific responsibilities. I'm going to keep that item on the agenda. In other business, Mr. Fuller wanted to mention the potential of having a wage enforcement coordinator to accrue revenue from non-city projects where they essentially are not paying taxes. He noted that it is a unique position that more than pays for itself and actually accrues revenue the city is missing out on. Ms. Cabot stated that she will discuss this with Amber and Steve. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 5:49. Next meeting will be Tuesday, April 26th at 5 p.m. And I know it says discuss charter first in the agenda. I'm going to switch those around if that's okay with everybody and get this legislation out of the way. I would like to introduce all the ordinances simultaneously, if that is okay with everyone. I hope it is. All right, so with that, I would like to introduce ordinances 20 through 26 of the year 2022 and move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only and to dispense with the second and third readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Goldman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Ordinance 20, 2022, an ordinance amending codified ordinance 266.01-2, coverage previously adopted through ordinance 182, 2009 on October 10, 2009. Ordinance 21, 2022, an ordinance amending codified ordinance 266.01-3, nomenclature, previously adopted through ordinance 59, 2019 on December 17, 2019. Ordinance 22, 2022, an ordinance amending codified ordinance 266.05-2, overtime for non-exempt staff members, previously adopted through ordinance 59, 2021 on December 7, 2021. Ordinance 23, 2022, an ordinance amending codified ordinance 266.08-2, vacation eligibility, previously adopted through ordinance 132, 2008 on July 29, 2008. Ordinance 24, 2022, an ordinance amending codified ordinance 266.09-1, insurance, specifically subsection C, life and A, D&D insurance, previously adopted through ordinance 62, 2019 on December 17, 2019. Ordinance 25, 2022, an ordinance amending codified ordinance 266.09-2, B, paid sick leave, previously adopted through ordinance 64, 2021 on December 7, 2021. Ordinance 26, 2022, an ordinance amending codified ordinance 266.09-5, deferred compensation, previously adopted through ordinance 54, 2007 on April 17, 2007.
Thank you very much, Amber. I appreciate that. With that, I will go ahead and move that ordinances 20 through 26 of the year 2022 be passed.
Second.
Discussion.
Just real quick, before we take a vote, this is kind of the non-fun work that I really appreciate Kelly, Kate, and Bridget taking the time to do. It's important. It is not sexy by any means. We appreciate you making our codified ordinances make sense with everything else that's going on. I look forward to you continuing to do that with other sections, but thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes. Okay, and then before I give up my platform to speak here, I wanted to bring up discussing potential charter changes because it seems through the information we've gathered in personnel, we have a year that it would be rather cheap to make changes, and we, as a council, have the authority to do so with a supermajority vote, I believe. And I think we have had some provisions come up in the last couple of years that I've been on council, that I think it's council themselves probably have specific understandings or are directly affected by some of it. And it's probably more appropriate to address those on council than it might be in a charter review. So with that, I know that one of the items I do support is the law director is a very unique position. I think Kate would probably agree in that it's serving all of the city. Okay, so she represents city council, she represents the mayor. Although I don't think you have to advise the judiciary at this point
I
too
try
much.
not to.
But you do have an arm out there with the prosecutor. So you go across all branches, and I think in order to accomplish that, it makes sense to only have elected officials kind of over your head, or have you reporting to those elected officials. So that would be the one charter change that I would, and I can't even say it was my idea, or I don't even really know where it came from, but that is one I would be interested in examining or having discussions on. I know there have been other ones that come up, but if you don't mind, Kate, giving us a quick rundown of the costs, because I know that's always a concern of my fellow council members of how much the charter change would cost or to put on the ballot, that process.
I know that I answered that question for you previously, and I'm sorry. I think the answer was that it was around $2,000 or less. I'm sorry, I was.
Was the email that you sent?
Yes, there was an email.
I think it was right around 1,000.
Okay, then I.
Get that information to me, but it was not.
It was not substantial.
It was not.
It was not substantial in any way. It was somewhere less than 2,000 for sure. I remember that.
And it seemed like it was less cost prohibitive than we might have initially thought when I asked the question, or at least I was surprised it really wouldn't cost that much. And I think it's because it's a year where the state has a lot of measures on the ballot.
I don't know what the cost would be in an odd year. I do know that the election told Amber that it was less expensive in an even year because there are state issues on the ballot, and that divvies up the cost across more platforms. So that much I do know is true.
Okay. And I know you've gotten us some information. I believe the deadline was sometime in August where we'd have to have proposed language to the
Yes.
Board of Elections. So if we, as a council, were going to take action on making some charter changes, this would be a convenient year to do so, an effective use of taxpayer money. That is one area where I think council is probably especially situated to make a decision without a charter review committee. I know there's also been discussion, as I mentioned in my minutes, to having department heads and division heads at committee meetings that are related to their departments, unless excused by the chair. I'm going to kind of throw you under the bus here.
I'll jump in real quick. So this is something that we could either talk about now or we could wait till the charter review on this. But looking at a couple of charters in the area, we're going to look at one right now. And this would be only for those who are noted in the actual charter itself as a defined department head. But what it says in the charter for the city of Maumee that, looking at what it says, the director of public safety for the city of Maumee shall attend all regular meetings of council unless excused for good cause by the mayor or council. So it wouldn't be, there's an opportunity to have either the mayor or the council excuse the individual, but it would at least put that expectation, even though there's nothing wrong with what we see now with the department heads coming to committee meetings when there's, or even to council itself. It at least puts that expectation out there that if it's in the charter, they should be coming to the council meeting in the event that there is a question that arises.
We council or committee?
We could put it on our council, we could put both council and committee. I also see council meetings kind
I
of.
would just say certain things. One, first off, nobody's asked me about this, and I do, a little above the charter review question, which is a significant change to our document, was at least asked to the administration as a concern, because this administration has repeatedly tried to make sure council gets all the information, gets people attending meetings, and I think it is important that we do no harm in passing charters. And as a matter of fact, the last charter review was just 5 years ago. I think the next one can be in 4 years or sooner if council so requests. But, and we'll probably ought to do it on an even year, so we'll save some everybody money. But this is the type of change that it seems to me there's nothing wrong. You're fixing a problem that doesn't exist, especially for this administration, which I was on council a long time, and make sure that when people want people there, they're there. So it seems to me this is unnecessary, but if council wants to do that, I would just say that.
I'll say from my perspective on bringing this, I brought it to the council as a whole so we could have an open discussion. I honestly don't know whether we're going to put anything on the ballot, but I wanted to have a discussion. I think it's important. I know I educated myself on the process by asking those questions, and I think it's important that we all know that the council also has the power to do that, because before, my impression was that we had to wait on charter review, and I don't think anybody misled me. That's not my claim at all. I think it was my own ignorance of not knowing.
Charters, council is always free to change the charter.
Yeah, correct. And I was just under the misimpression that we have to wait. And I do think there are some circumstances where the city council is probably in a better position to understand the complexities and relationships to measure whether the charter needs changed in certain aspects. So none of the stuff that we're bringing up is personal to this administration. I hope it's not taken that way, because I've been pleased with the way this administration is operating, quite frankly. I think we're getting some cool things done. But I think it's important to have the conversations when they come up, when we see anomalies within the charter that are unique to Perrysburg. And speaking as a council member right now, for the law director in particular, it is a unique position. I think that's an error in the charter. It shouldn't be there. And I think it's not a huge change. I don't think it's going to affect the way things operate. So that specifically, I think if we see an issue in a charter, we as council should probably address that, especially if it makes financial sense as they arise.
Yeah, let me speak to that. The reporting or supervision of the law director was actually an issue I probably raised with Corey. It seems to me in the charter there's an anomaly. The law director is to advise both the mayor and council. And to then say, though, the law director reports to the city administrator, who reports to the mayor, I think puts the law director in a tenuous position where, you know, who's the boss? And I have a very vivid recollection of when this occurred to me. It was when, I don't know if it was Kate's position or when we hired Laura, we interviewed candidates. And I recall one of the candidates making a statement that he looked forward to being a part of the mayor's cabinet. Well, that's not our structure here in Perrysburg. It never has been. And I also have a recollection of a situation probably a couple mayors ago where I think the law director, well, I won't name names, but I talked to the law director subsequently, and I think he felt a little bit compromised in his ability to advise council because council and the administration weren't in sync on that particular issue. So I think if the charter says the law director should advise the mayor and council, then in my view, the mayor and council ought to be the one who supervises the law director. On the second issue, I guess I kind of agree with Tom in part that not only this administration, I don't think I know an administration that didn't make these folks available if we needed to have them come. And I don't necessarily want to burden them with attending meetings, you know, where they have to sit through nothing that really pertains to police or fire. You know, if they have duties outside their regular responsibilities on a day-to-day basis to run their divisions, And I think we should use that time to go out and be available to the public, you know, attend meetings where the public wants a police chief or a fire chief to come talk to them. I think their time would be much better spent there, and I've never had an issue with anyone not being able to attend a meeting when council felt they were needed. So I think that second issue is one that particularly ought to go through charter review.
And I don't have a problem with that, and I don't want the conversation with Director Law to be overtaken by this whole part of the proposal.
Our department heads are really busy people, and to add this extra burden when they've been very responsive to us to coming to committee meetings and coming to our board council meetings is just, it's not warranted. If we had an issue with it, I could see it, but we don't. So I don't think that's needed.
I would also add, for the first point that I think everybody's talked about, there also have been a lot of discussions between council, personnel, administration to try and see the best way forward. And so I understand what the administrator of the council is trying to do. And I think that at a certain point there is the need for the evaluation of that. And if that's the kind of choice the council makes, that's fine. But this is also a perfect example of it went through the committees, it was sorted through, discussed, administrations responded at various times, trying to get legal interpretations and a whole bunch of other things. And I think the administration will continue that for all the other committees. And I think that's a perfect example of something that's right for consideration if council so chooses to do that, as opposed to some other issues that would be my opinion that you don't need to take action if you don't want to take action.
If I can ask as well, I know every time we have the charter review come up, we have lists of items to have discussion for the charter review committee. Are we keeping a list for?
We don't have that many items. That was on it.
I'm keeping a list.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have some items. We have some technical things.
No.
And which I'm not sure that are right for consideration either. But I guess we can get that list to the council.
So I guess what I will mention as well, with going back to the director of law, because that's really where I think the primary focus should be on this. The question I would have with that as well, if we remove section C from the director of law under the charter, which says the director of law shall serve under the supervision of the city administrator and their employee of city council. One of the conversations I had before when we were coming up for the charter review a few years ago, if the position is supposed to be responding to both city council and the mayor as the supervisor at that point. There is, and I'm trying to get away with it. This isn't anything against Kate or anything, or any previous law director, but in order to remove the person from the position, the mayor has to propose it to city council. Is that something we should look at changing where city council would be able to have the authority of supermajority?
I think that's about the only appropriate. The law director, I would say that's the only department head where that language would be appropriate.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
I mean, I think it should be a supermajority of council because they are serving council and the mayor. So I don't think that council should necessarily have to rely on the mayor to bring that.
The general side to that, I guess would have some concerns about the application of that and getting then somebody who is in the past, say for example, you could get a majority of council that just didn't like the opinion of didn't like a legitimate legal opinion that was properly thought out and just wasn't what they wanted to hear. That's a hypothetical. And then a supermajority council votes that person off the island because they don't like.
You can unanimous if you wanted to.
I mean so I guess I would have some, and I think
Couldn't you say the same thing about the mayor though, too? I mean,
the mayor can only make a motion and then council has to vote them off. And so you would have to have generally supermajority of everybody on the dais reaching that decision, and hopefully there would be enough people, and my experience has been that in any instance there are enough people who care about the best interest of Perrysburg, that really wouldn't be an issue. But
Well, I guess
if you don't mind, Court, it gets through a hypothetical situation. The whole reason of removing this section C part is to show that the person is responding to both city council and the mayor. If the mayor has ultimate authority to present to remove, it would still leave that individual to have that same problem of only responding to the mayor. If there's at odds with the mayor and council, they would be more apt to respond to the mayor, knowing the mayor's the only one that can remove them from their position.
Well, again, I would say there's a danger also in this route, and that the current mayor is a lawyer. The next mayor may or may not be one, and it's hard to supervise a position that you don't know everything about. Although I do that every day, but but
it's on the record now.
Yeah, that's true. But I think the biggest question to that would be the lawyer has a legal obligation to make a recommendation that's consistent with the law. And I think the lawyer could, in a certain situation, have to recuse themselves and say that there's conflict if there are two competing interests, that they can't represent either one of them, and that would trigger certain things happening. So I think that it's less of a threat if the mayor is just recommending and then council's only can remove, because the mayor recommends it doesn't have council support. Then the mayor is the person who's left hanging out there, not the person who gave a legitimate legal opinion that just wasn't what people want to hear. And I think we have had that happen before. Sure. So, I mean, but that's, again, that's for the council to decide.
Yeah, I think the person in that position should feel they have protection and that they can freely give the best legal advice they're able to give. And the only way they'd be subject to removal is there's two votes. One's the mayor, one's the council. And
do we allow for the council, the supermajority council, to propose it to the mayor?
well, that might be something you could think about.
There's two different ways of doing it.
Yeah. But I don't think we're to that level of formality yet here in town. I think if there was really an issue, I suspect council and mayor would be talking through the president of council or otherwise. I will rule out the motion that supermajority can propose, but yeah, I'm worried that could just become a tool to embarrass the law director.
And that's what I don't want it to be either, but I'm just wondering if there's, I mean, we're talking about hypothetical of what happens if a supermajority of council doesn't like the decision of the law director and have the authority to do it. I understand that, but there could be flipped both ways to a certain extent.
I tend to agree with Jonathan, but I think there's merit to. You may come into a situation where the mayor does not want to be the person that recommends the termination. They may agree with it, but they may not want to be the spearhead too. So I think that can play into it. I do think there is competing positions where council may want to propose that. I think anybody that proposes it and gets shot down is really putting themselves out there. But I think you could also run into a position where you run into a mayor that's not willing to do what needs done.
So I'm curious how this came up, other than the researching of the charter, because when I was on personnel, I always remember Tim's first, one of his many questions to the applicant was, so who do you work for? And that was always a qualifier to see how they understood the dynamic of council and mayor. And it just seems like we maybe a little bit whimsical as a council sometimes, and we ran into that when we developed our own fund for our own attorney. And I understand that fund is still available to us because we weren't feeling represented.
I don't know if the fund's available anymore. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That could be. I'm seeing different nods. But that was because we didn't feel like we were being served, or certain council members didn't feel we were being served. But I think it passed with the majority. It was probably 40 vote. To me, that's so much of this has to do with integrity and then doing the law. And I'd like to think the law, it can be up for interpretation, but that's what we're asking for. And so and I'll just use Kate as an example. If it was a problem of integrity or her not being able to do law, then we'd have a problem. And so, so I'm just asking how did this come about?
My counterpoint, I guess, I don't even know if it's a counterpoint, but the way I analyze that is, as someone that practices law, you become an advocate, right? So, depending on who's asking what questions, or if you feel like you have a boss over here rather than a boss over here, you're going to have some implicit bias as to perhaps the legal research you might be doing or the end result. You're going to have a tendency to want to please the person you're advocating for. This, to me, is just it's a clear conflict. It's a clear conflict between the intent of the position and the charter language. It puts the balls more in the court of the administration when it comes to a law director than it does for city council.
Well, I guess I would say to both of your kind of points, both of these are kind of, we haven't had this problem, partly because we have not had adversarial relationships, and it has not been partisan or anything along those lines. And hopefully, and I think that, well, I think it's certainly willing to cooperate with any attempted or revisions to the charter to make it more clear what the duties and responsibilities of somebody is. I think part of this is a reflection of there are other communities that don't have it as fortunate as Perrysburg that we're able to generally trust that the legal counsel we're getting is good advice, done well, and in a way that is representing the city of Perrysburg, not a particular side. And I think that we're well served by that. Could be better, certainly welcome to participate in it, if they can make it better. But I think part of these issues are hypothetical issues because of how well the city has been represented and is currently represented. So
Thanks.
through that. There's good discussion. I think, I'm not sure exactly the next step in the timeline or.
I just wanted to bring it up for a first discussion. We have some time on this. I do think it's important to have a conversation as a whole council rather than this was on personnel committee's agenda, I think the last two meetings. So I'm happy to keep it as a discussion point. Do we want to set a time frame for a decision? Do we want to, I can hand it over to Jonathan as president of council to handle his report, or I can keep it. I have no problem with either. But I do think it's appropriate to put some parameters on making a motion of.
Well, I assume there's some deadline by which you'd have to propose it.
We have to have it ready for the board election by August, you said, correct?
That is correct.
By August. So we have some time. I will
tell you that I will recuse myself from drafting this. I don't think it's appropriate for me to draft my position in a charter review in this matter. So if you want this drafted, I am recusing myself from drafting this. Not because I agree or disagree with it. I just think it's inappropriate that I draft language that changes who I report to in the charter. I don't think that's appropriate.
We use the money now.
Hopefully, so there.
I guess I'm curious what the conflict is, because, and let me preface it with, if we're giving you.
I think that's a fair point to talk now. And this is whether you recuse yourself as an ethics issue as a lawyer,
Yeah,
and I don't hope that's not something we're going to debate in public.
But just to answer the question, I have money in the law department budget for outside legal counsel stuff. If there's not money in the city council.
It's not a big deal either way. I was kidding.
I just wanted to make mention that my reservation with this is opening the charter. There's a process for opening the charter. I know we have the ability as council to do so, but I appreciate the process of the charter review. I feel like it brings in a variety of people from different backgrounds and experiences, and there's a process for that. It sounds like Kate's taking note on this, and we got 6 years for the next.
Yeah, it has to be done within 10 years, so you also can actually schedule one anytime if it wants to do that. So if you want to.
That's just my, I guess, My opinion on the matter is I feel like we're opening something again that, when we stop that practice, right? If we just get in the practice of doing it every time we don't agree with something, it's something that I would rather not see happen.
And that's what I don't disagree with you on, and that's why I really want to focus just on one. So even though I have ideas for other things, I always have ideas, but I would prefer to put those on the list when we have a charter review. I think if we do look at this is something that is a conversation. I don't think we need to have any decisions or anything like this tonight. This is too big of a decision to even go through tonight or even at the next council meeting. But take time for everyone to think it over, look at everything, have some conversations with the administration, or individuals that you know, and in this, and just come back and see if this is something we want to move forward with this time.
Yeah, just so I understand the procedure, I don't want to ask you that.
I'm gonna be that. I just don't want to.
You know, I was when I was asking that question, I was thinking it's going to come in the form of a motion that we're going to be specific on what the change would be. But I hate you not wanting to draft the ballot language. There's ballot language that comes along, and that escaped me for a moment, so I apologize for that. So in order to the process for changing this, I would assume we need a motion with the proposed language.
Yes.
And a supermajority vote.
I would do it as an ordinance with the proposed language. A supermajority vote will have to pass it, and then we would send it to the elections board.
Okay. And that all has to be completed by sometime in August, and
I think it's August 10th, but please don't hold me to that.
If you could,
I will confirm the date.
This is not a pressing issue. If you can send that information that you've already given me to the rest of the council, so that we can work on that.
I'll just find that email.
All right, perfect. Thank you. That ends my report.
All right. Public utilities.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a report this evening on pieces of legislation. The meeting was called to order on March 23rd, 2022, 6:32 p.m. By myself and committee members present were Janice Gurney, Jonathan Smith was absent. Also present were City Administrator, Law Director, and Deputy Director of Public Utilities. There were no citizens' concerns. The approval of prior month's minutes were approved. There were no objections. Sewer credits tabulation. Ms. Cabot requested the credits be reviewed at the next meeting since Ms. Godsey is the one who calculates and explains those. The water and sewer miscellaneous fees. Ms. Cabot explained that Ordinance 11-2022 addresses the increased cost for the city to install new taps and meters both inside and outside the city, as we are currently losing money on each installation of a tap or meter. Ordinances 12-2022 and 13-2022 address Perrysburg's capital expansion fees for both water and sewer. Ms. Cabot wanted to note two key points. The first is that the outstanding debt is backed by the full faith and credit of the city's general fund, i.e. income tax, not the utility fund. Second is a cost allocation plan which takes the services that the general fund provides and calculates the value of those services. This means at the time of Ms. Cabot, Ms. Sandrotto, ITHR, the city engineer and the finance is all funded by the general fund, not charged back to the utility fund. The general fund is subsidizing the utility funds. I say that I do not find it necessary to bring it back to the committee level. Ms. Sandrotto put it on the agenda as a second reading and can be discussed at the next city council meeting. Under other business, the city is requesting to purchase polymer for wastewater treatment plant, Paladine Inc.
Sorry, you're in the minutes, never mind.
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting.
Let's see, was the lowest and the best bidder for this project, or for this product. It's an estimated amount of $50,000 each year for 3 years for polymer that is part of the solutions used to treat wastewater. Ms. Sandrotto explained that the previous compound is not compatible with recently installed equipment. There being no objections, committee agrees to recommend this to City Council 2-0. I requested to receive a tour of the wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Attorney and Ms. Cabot work to get something scheduled. Ms. Cabot announced that Ms. Godsey had turned in her resignation and will retire in September of this year. The city is now looking for a new director of public utilities. Ms. Cabot stated that they are hoping that at some point have the current director, new director, and the deputy director all work together so that there's a good transition for this department. There was no further business, and the meeting was adjourned at 6:50 p.m. Respectfully submitted. The next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. As mentioned, I do have a little piece of legislation. I would like to group these together, if that's okay, if there's no objections with that. And I'm going to recommend that we vote on that. So I would, this evening, so I'd like to introduce ordinances 11, 12, and 13. Move that the rules be suspended to allow for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the third reading.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Ordinance 11, 2022, amending codified ordinance 1060.04, tap or connection charges of the city of Perrysburg, utilities code codified by ordinance 46, 2012, and passed on March 6, 2012. Ordinance 12, 2022, amending codified ordinance 1060.08, capital expansion charge of the city of Perrysburg, utilities code codified by ordinance 46, 2012, and last amended on February 7, 2017. Ordinance 13, 2022, amending codified ordinance 1050.09, capital expansion charge of the city of Perrysburg, utilities code codified by ordinance 46, 2012, and last amended on November 4, 2003.
I move that ordinances 11, 12, 13-2022 be passed.
Second.
Discussion?
I'll just throw in that I was the one who brought up a lot of concerns on this, and I do appreciate the administration and the Water Utilities Department for going out and really looking at this to provide us how our income tax dollars are affected with this, other than totally that was brought up at the beginning. So it's I was looking for some justification. I believe that there's quite a bit of justification at this point on this, so I do appreciate the work and that the city staff has put in on this.
Roll call?
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes.
I apologize, it says that in our report.
Give it a third reading? Much better than I did. Service Committee.
Before I give my service committee report, I recommend that we not accept Ms. Godson's resignation and leave her work. It's been a pleasure working with you.
I think you might have something to say about that.
Give it a mic for
Okay.
September.
The meeting was called to order at 5:30 by Chairperson Jan Matroni. Committee members present were Jan Matroni, Ken Fuller, and Mark Weber. Also present were Bridget Kevitt, City Administrator, and Kate Sandrello, Law Director. Citizens concerns none. There being approval of prior month's minutes, there's no objections, so they're approved. 2 vehicles for engineering. Ms. Kevitt explained that 2 vehicles currently have been cascaded down from other departments, being vehicles from 2003 and 2006. They are not fuel efficient, not up to date safety standards, and the interiors are in poor conditions. $75,000 total for the 2 vehicles were budgeted. The purchase of the 2022 Ford Escape Hybrid from Montrose Ford would be $29,770. Purchase of the 2022 Ford Ranger from Reineke Family Dealerships would be $35,000. There being no objections, committee recommended use to City Council. Award State Route 25 Indiana project. Ms. Cabot explained that there would be award. This would award the bid to Miller Brothers Construction for the improvement to State Route 25 in Indiana intersection. It will reconstruct and widen Indiana to lengthen the westbound left lane, turn lane, and add a new westbound right turn lane. State Route 25 will also be widened to extend the southbound left turn lane. The overall bid is over $1 million, with 80% of this coming from a TMCOG congestion mitigation air quality grant, with 15% contingency. The City Council, city's total will be a little over $3 million. I'm sorry, not reading numbers up. Ms. Materne wanted to know the volatility of the cost of oil if there's a fuel price adjustment. Ms. Cabot stated that this is a guaranteed price. Mr. Weber asked if we would plan to have the possibility of future multi-use pad. Ms. Cabot responded that there will be plenty of room to do that on the north side of Indiana Avenue. There being no objections, the committee agreed to forward this to City Council 3-0. Award sidewalk repair program. Ms. Cabot stated that we only received one actual bid, which was within the city's engineer's estimate. The projects consist of repairing city sidewalks by lifting, leveling, or grinding any city sidewalk section that has been identified needed repair, or fully replace sections that are beyond the repair specifications. And then Formworks LLC is who the city has worked with on this project for the last 2 years as well. The Department of Public Service has been very satisfied with their work. There being no objections, the committee agreed to forward this to City Council 3-0. Purchase refuse truck. Ms. Cabot explained that this is to authorize purchase of a new refuse truck from the Department of Public Service. This Labrie Automizer Helping Hand 31 cubic yard automatic refuse truck will replace a 10-year-old refuse truck. Due to wear and tear, the 10-year-old truck will remain as backup truck in a rotating fleet when routine maintenance is performed on other similar trucks. There being no objections, the committee agreed to forward this to council 3-0. Purchase boom mower. Ms. Cabot stated the city is wanting to purchase 22-foot boom mower and a John Deere cab tractor for the Department of Public Services. Should the Department of Public Service be provided with this equipment, they would be able to perform the task more frequently and expand their ditch maintenance program. The boom mower would cost $76,000 and the tractor is $88,258.50. There being no objection, the committee agreed to forward this to City Council 3-0. Wall restoration. Ms. Cabot explained the Maumee Western Reserve Road retaining walls and maintenance. The wall needs to have repairs made to the cracked mortar joints, new caulking of all control joints, replacing the old cracked bricks, and installation of new wall cap to prevent water from getting in behind the poured wall and brick fascia. There being no objections, we agree to forward this to City Council 3-0. Recycling. Ms. Cabot reviewed the prices of various items the city recycles with the committee members. Mr. Fuller was curious if we have seen an increase in tonnage of refuse because people are putting glass in garbage cans rather than taking it to the glass recycling location. Ms. Cabot responded that it's hard to say that it is increased the first month and since tapered off. Other business. Ms. Cabot explained to Mr. Weber that she spoke with ODOT and are supposed to call them if there's graffiti on one of their overpasses or underpasses. The city is not allowed to paint it. Ms. Cabot also wanted to let me know that they have received a proposal for Phase 3 of the multi-use path, which begins to the west of Riverside Park. The committee mentioned the possibility of reshuffling some ARPA funds for this project. There being no further business, the meeting adjourned at 6:21, and I have resolutions here. I need to bring it for you guys. Okay, some of these I'm going to put together and some I'm not. The first one, I'm not, it's going to be Resolution 28. I would like to introduce Resolution 28 and move that the rules be suspended, allowed for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second and third reading.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Emergency.
You guys have emergency, you do the clear.
Yeah, I see that now. Thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Materne.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Resolution 28, 2022, a resolution authorizing the city to purchase mosquito control supplies from Clark Inc. at a cost not to exceed $35,828.10 and declaring an emergency.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. I move that Resolution 28-2021 be passed as an emergency measure.
Can you amend that to 2022, please? My apologies.
2022.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, it's my typo. I'm sorry.
2022.
I second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Materne.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'd like to introduce Resolution 29-2020, and these two on the next one we'll put together. A resolution -30-2022, and move that the rules be suspended, allowed for its reading by number and title only, and to dispense with the second, third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 29, 2022, a resolution authorizing the purchase agreement with Montrose Ford in an amount not to exceed $29,777 for the purchase of a 2022 Ford Escape hybrid vehicle for the Division of Engineering and declaring an emergency. Resolution 30, 2022, a resolution authorizing the purchase agreement with Reineke Family Dealerships in the amount not to exceed $35,335 for the purchase of a 2022 Ford Ranger vehicle for the Division of Engineering and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolution 29-2022 and 30-2022 be passed as emergency measures.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to introduce resolution 30, I'm gonna do 31, 32, and 36 all together, if that's no problem.
32 and 31, one's an emergency, one isn't.
Oh, never mind, thank you very much. I'll just go ahead with my original thing. I would like to introduce resolution 31-2022 and move that the rules be suspended, allow for its reading by number and title only, to dispense with the second, third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 31, 2022, authorizing the award and the bid agreement to Millward Brothers Construction, Inc. for the provision of construction services for the State Route 25 at Indiana Avenue intersection improvement, ODOT PID number 108456, in the amount of $1,081,553 and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolution 31-2022 be passed as emergency measure.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
I would like to introduce resolution 32-2022 and move that the rules be suspended, allow for its reading by number and title only, and dispense with the second, third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Duzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 32, 2022, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Great Lakes Concrete Restoration for the repair of the Maumee Western Reserve retaining wall on Front Street in the amount of $37,740.
I move that resolution 32-2022 be passed.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
I would like to introduce resolution 33, 34, and 35 all together, and move that the rules be suspended, allow for its reading by number and title only, to dispense with the second, third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Matroni?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 33, 2022, a resolution authorizing a purchase agreement with Best Equipment Sales in an amount not to exceed $304,714 for the purchase of a Labrie Automizer automated refuse truck for the Department of Public Service and declaring an emergency. Resolution 34, 2022, a resolution authorizing a purchase agreement with Collida Truck Equipment in an amount not to exceed $67,000 for the purchase of a Diamond 22-foot rear cradle broom mower for the Department of Public Service and declaring an emergency. Resolution 35, 2022, a resolution authorizing purchase agreement with John Deere Company, Hinfeld Group LLC in an amount not to exceed $88,258.50 for the purchase of a John Deere 6110M cab tractor for the Department of Public Service and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolution 33-2022, 33-2020, 34-2022, and 35-2022 be passed as emergency measures.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes,
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
I would like to introduce resolution 36-2022 and move that the rules be suspended, allow for its reading by title and number only, and to dispense with the second, third reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
yes,
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen,
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Resolution 36, 2022, a resolution awarding a bid agreement with M&N Foamworks LLC in the amount not to exceed $175 for the 2022 sidewalk program and declaring an emergency.
I move that resolution 36-2022 be passed as emergency.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarthy,
yes,
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Van Huzen,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Matroni.
Yes. That is all I have.
Sure you don't have any more?
I can think of stuff. Next meeting is Wednesday, April 27th at 5:30 p.m.
Any other business for council?
One thing,
Oh, yes.
I had, one individual come up and ask if, and I know we put the budgets online on our website, is it possible to get the 2022 up there as well?
Sure, I will make that happen tomorrow.
Okay. Because people that can attend meetings are interested in that, so appreciate it.
Yep.
Any other business?
Make the motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposition? Hearing none. We're adjourned.